Billy D's right here. This is the podcast update for YouTube and Facebook for the week of October 12th. If you are new here, let us say that we are too in terms of Facebook and YouTube, but not new to podcasting. We've been around a long time on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, all of those. We are not jumping on the podcasting bandwagon. We have been here a long time doing professional audio content, and we're very proud of that. So thank you for being a part of this. This is kind of why we started the YouTube and the Facebook page, just to give our audience some insight into what we're doing. We can talk to the audience more informally without having to incorporate it into one of our episodes or one of our interviews, for example, which would be kind of cumbersome. So this gives us a way to just kind of informally hang out with you. And for those of you who may want to contact us or send us a comment, you can do that. Last week was a busy week here at the Billy D's podcast. We did two, what I would say, in-depth episodes for HO Press, Shore House Books. And it's interesting, I smile because their website, humoroutcast.com, I actually started with them as a staff humor writer. I'm going to say 10 years ago, something like that. And over the years, I started doing a lot of their digital media, and it's been a great, great partnership. Last week, we talked to Bill Spencer. Uranus is always funny. And it is, obviously, right? And also Will 3, Hartley Law. Those two interviews are active right now everywhere you find the Billy D's podcast. And these interviews were 2 in 1 week. And as a matter of fact, the most recent one was obviously just a few days ago. So this week, October 12th, we opted not to do an episode because as far as the audience of the Billy D's podcast, a lot of times when episodes, especially in-depth ones, come out one right after the other, the audience doesn't always have a chance to digest them. And there's another reason, too. I wanted to take a week and promote those previous 2 episodes. I'm going to talk about that a little bit here in a moment. So anyway, for the publisher, we did those 2 episodes. And one of the reasons why I'm kind of speculating here on part of the publisher, but in terms of timing, but there's absolutely no question that getting that information out for the authors as soon as possible is a very good thing, because they use those interviews and those other things as part of their content marketing strategy. They get them out there on their social media. They might put links to it on their website. So this is a good resource for the authors. And that's why we always try to do a good job with those, as we do with all of our work. But obviously, other people's goals are often wrapped up in the success of other things that they are doing. And we always are very, very conscious of that. We always try to do a good job for that reason. But getting back to, I was going to take a week to promote the podcast in general, not just those 2 episodes, but the podcast in general. I was going to give this week a chance for our usual audience to digest those 2 episodes. Maybe they've listened to one and not the other, and then to throw a third one in there, then then sometimes they can get off track. So we'll give the audience a chance to check out those 2 episodes, give them another week. And in terms of promotion, I'm trying some different things. I have used Facebook as a not only to post information there, but to actually use it as a paid resource for promotion. And, that's part of what I do for my business, is help people do these types of things. And so far, I would have to say that Facebook works well if you are choosing to brand whatever it is you are doing. Facebook is good for branding. if you're one of these type of people that are always going to say, well, what's my ROI going to be, and use all these fancy terms, return on investment, and you're going to be looking at so much dollars spent versus dollars coming in that you can directly match up in terms of this customer came to me because of Facebook. I don't know. It depends on your marketplace and what you have. Obviously, if you're selling gold bricks for a quarter, everything is going to work. But in terms of that, you may not be as happy. But branding is something that people have a tendency to forget about in terms of their advertising and what they're doing with their marketing. Branding is very important. And in a nutshell, when people hear the Billy D's podcast, I want them to say, oh, I've heard of that. That's very important because it gives them a feeling of this is established, this is legitimate. And Facebook works well for branding, and that kind of ties in with what you're doing with Instagram. Now, I personally have had limited success with Instagram, but I've had great success with other clients. So it just kind of depends on what you're doing. And in regard to paid advertising, paid promotion, I'm not as familiar with Twitter for that purpose. I'm very successful on Twitter. Twitter has been very good to the Billy D's podcast. A very large percentage of our listeners can be traced to the podcast fan base that's on Twitter. But in terms of using it as a paid promotion, I'm not as familiar with it as I am Facebook or Google Ads or one of those. So I just started experimenting with it. And they're kind of a different beast. I'm going to have to get back with you on what I've decided to do, but it's not like Facebook where you have a certain promotion run for a given time in a certain demographic and it's going to be X amount of dollars. It doesn't quite work like that. And it's kind of cumbersome to explain, and I don't have it down pat yet either myself. So give me a rain check on that, and maybe in the coming weeks when I've decided what I want to do, I will get back with you. And to their credit, they have a system that knows I checked into it on my account, and they've sent me all these help things, and if I need to talk to anybody. So they're right on top of it, which is a good thing. But, Twitter, it really kind of depends on what you're doing in terms of how that promotion is going to work. And in my world, with the Billy D's podcast, a lot of authors, musicians, comedians, all of these things that translate very well into the content that's on Twitter. Now, if you have a local car repair business, it may not do that much for you because that's a different type of content that you are going to be doing. I'm not saying it's not worth it, but it's a different beast. So I'll give you more information on that as time goes along. In the coming weeks, obviously the election is right around the corner. Chances are I will be doing some commentary, some additional commentary. If you have any ideas, something that you would like to ask me about, obviously you can leave a message in the comments. If you're on Facebook, you can send me a direct message. And if you have any type of message that you would like to send me that you don't want to be for public consumption, like a tweet or something like that, at Billy D's on Twitter. If you want to send me an email, you can go to our company website, which is perfectmediaprods.com, and simply go to the contact tab, and you can send an email directly to me. If you have any, obviously, things that you want to go about and talk about in detail. I'm getting a lot of requests about guests being on the podcast, and a lot more stuff is coming in from various internet radio stations, podcasting platforms about carrying the Billy D's podcast. And if you have any information in regard to that, any questions in regard to that, be sure to send me all of the contact information, all of the relevant links to whatever it is you have got going on so I can prepare myself for that conversation. But in the coming weeks, we're doing a couple more in-depth interviews. I won't mention any names yet until we get all the T's crossed. We're in the early stages of getting some of these together. But we have a very interesting author with a personal storybook that we're going to be talking to. someone who is very badly injured in an accident is wanting to tell their story on our podcast. So we have a lot of interesting stories coming up. And the best I can tell you is just follow us on Facebook. Current updates pretty much every week, every other week. And also on Twitter, anything that we're doing, anything that, any announcements for any live broadcasts or anything like that are going to be on Twitter. All right. So that's going to let me try that again. That is going to pretty much do it for our update this week. I am Billy Dees. Keep listening. We appreciate every single one of you, and we'll be talking to you again very soon.